At the time of recording this, Jedi Fallen Order came out 11 months ago. Wow. Over the last year or so, a few of you have asked me what I think about this game. And I'm not going to lie, getting a new standalone single-player Star Wars game has been one of my biggest desires in a computer game for the better part of a decade. The reason I initially avoided Fallen Order for so long was a combination of being genuinely afraid that I wouldn't enjoy it, and also that it wouldn't have anything new to add to the Star Wars universe. It turns out I was partly right. Because of that, I avoided everything. I've never read a review of this game. I've never even watched a trailer. I didn't know anything about Jedi Fallen Order before going into it, and the journey that I've been on with Cal and the gang has led me to believe that Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars in general excels at speaking with its own unique voice while rarely having anything original to say. Let's start at the beginning. We open up on a bleak, desolate planet 5 years after Order 66. The Empire has started its stranglehold on the galaxy and everything is looking pretty miserable. Cal Kestis is a Jedi in hiding who survived Order 66. Sure, fine, cool. Oh, Purge Troopers, that's cool. The 9th and 2nd Sisters, hunting down the remains of the Jedi. Wow. Straight away, we've got ties into Rebels, into The Force Unleashed, and into the recent Darth Vader comic. Already, I'm pumped. The first level is a high-speed hover train. Straight away, I'm like, sick, just like the one in Jedi Academy or the one in Shadows of the Empire. I'm not even mad. This is Star Warsy as hell. Once we're climbing all over it, I'm like, oh, nice, just like in Uncharted. The climbing is nice, and there's even a few of those nice scripted set pieces like in Uncharted, you know, where there's no real danger. Again, this is fine. I'm not against this. Soon enough, Cal is thrown in with his new crew, and off they chip to the planet Bagato to rebuild the Jedi Order. The first half an hour or so of this game made me very, very happy. Jedi Fallen Order was written by Chris Avellone. This guy wrote KOTOR 2 and a bunch of Clone Wars comics, so you know none of this is done by accident. He's using the vocabulary of the Star Wars universe to draw us into an authentic feeling experience. It is a bit of a busy period for another story, but it fits nicely alongside what we already have. Once they're on Bagato, Cal finds the outrageously cute BD-1, and then it's all, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." Jedi Master Eno Cordova has been researching an advanced precursor civilization called the Zeffo. Cordova thinks their old temples will have mystical artifacts which will be useful to the Jedi. The Empire also knows about the Zeffo, so we have a race against time on our hands. There is nothing here that we haven't seen before elsewhere. Precursor civilizations are sci-fi bread and butter. The Forerunners, the First Civilization, the Chozo, the Echidnas, ancient temples, powerful artifacts, a race against the baddies. It's even been done in Star Wars before. The Jedi Knight games basically did all of this already, but I'll be damned if I don't say it just works. It's not original, but this is classic Star Wars. There is so much authenticity here, and it continues through the game. The story does actually get pretty complex from this point on. There's a lot of detail, which means that you will really benefit from seeking out all the data logs, something which I absolutely love. I love exploring in games. We'll have to come back to this subject though, because I was having a lovely time right up until this big stupid frog. I think you might have expected me to talk about this subject, so let's do it. Let's talk about the frog in the room. Full disclosure, I have never played a Souls-like game. I have played 30 minutes of Dark Souls, but that is it. That's possibly my fault, because I just had no idea what I was supposed to do. It's possible that Respawn assumed that I would have some idea, because there's very little in the way of tutorials, and the difficulty curve at the beginning of this was horrid. Cal is a young Jedi apprentice who severed his link to the Force, so it makes sense that you'd have a harder time at the beginning. But I saw this as a real barrier for a brand which I've always associated with having a level of accessibility. I don't think anybody ever watched a Star Wars film and then went, I wish this was harder to get into. But I have said it before, I think that there is room in Star Wars for everything, especially when it comes to the computer games. So of course, have Dark Souls cross Star Wars. It doesn't have to be for me for it to be good. Anyway, I dropped it too easy from this point on, and I enjoyed it a lot more. As Cal reconnected with the Force and learned a few more Force powers, it really started opening up, and I really started enjoying it. It would have been nice if health and Force power had gone up organically like it does in some of the other games, because then this would have let me spend some of my points points on cooler powers earlier on in the game. Also, saber damage should never be a thing. A lightsaber should carve through a stormtrooper in one hit by default. And this leads me on to my biggest gripe with Jedi Fallen Order. You kill a lot of animals in this game. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to kill animals in computer games. I'm saying it's weird for a main character in Star Wars to kill so many animals. I get what's going on here. Respawn made a tier list of enemies and they put stormtroopers down first and they put them in the middle, because everything from stormtroopers up makes perfect sense. But I guess they thought they needed to have lots of little gribblies below that to farm for XP, because the game says the way that you become a better Jedi is to murder hundreds of crabs. And it's not like there's a light side, dark side meter or anything. We're just sort of assured that everything Cal is doing is right. It says Jedi in the box, so he's a Jedi. I didn't really feel like I was being the good guy all the time, but this is glossed over so quickly, so I can't really tell if it's intentional or not. I'm going to assume that this comes from Dark Souls. Presumably you kill a lot of spiders in Dark Souls or something. I also gather that the Dark Souls games feel very sad and melancholy, because that's what Jedi Fallen Order felt like to me for a lot of it. I loved going to all these planets and seeing all these creatures lifted from the old EU and seeing all these new creations too, but chopping everything up, it made Fallen Order feel really lonely and really depressing. It's not off-brand to fight some big angry space monster in Star Wars. Dathomir, in fact, is the perfect opportunity to fight Rancors, because that's where they're from. But imagine watching Luke or Rey like chipping around Dagobah and just caning all the animals, like, ah, there's an iguana, ah, there's a snake, whack, 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 whack. Here I am halfway through Jedi Fallen Order, and my only two gripes with this game are things that are basically imported wholesale from another game and are the two least Star Warsy things about it. Getting back into it, the story really opens up in the second half, and I really start to enjoy the gameplay options on offer. Cal's journey takes him to half a dozen different planets, some of which are planets from the existing expanded universe, some of which are entirely new. All of them offer fantastic opportunities for weaving Jedi Fallen Order into the Star Wars mythos. There is one bit where Cal ends up fighting in a gladiator arena, and I was like, really? I've been nice up until this point by saying that Jedi Fallen Order isn't trying to be original, but wow, just off the top of my head, I can name 2 other Star Wars games, 1 Star Wars film, and 1 episode of the cartoon with gladiator arenas in, and that's just in Star Wars. Linking up with Saw Gerrera's Rebels was awesome. Even if we have visited Kashyyyk in a few games in the past, visiting Dathomir though was this great bittersweet moment. Dathomir is part of the old EU, so it was sick for me to see it realised in a modern Star Wars game, but seeing the planet so desolate after the genocide of the Night Sisters was really sad. I've said before how I find it really meaningful to be treading this familiar ground, to feel like I'm taking part in that bigger storyline, that I'm connected to the events shown in the films and in the TV shows. I loved poking around these places, some places I've heard of, some that I haven't, finding little artifacts of events which have happened. It feels at times like I'm drowning in authenticity in this game. Exploring new parts of the map would often yield a dead end, so I knew I'd have to come back later. I ended up visiting each planet well into double figures each time just getting a little bit further down those paths, finding a little bit more. This is probably hideously inefficient, but it was loads of fun. BD1 is not only super cute, but he's helping me not to feel quite as lonely in these places. He reminded me of the dog from Fable. He's helping me dig up these little treasures and finding new shinies that I can use to customize Cal's look. Cosmetic customization, again, it's nothing new, but it's still very cool, and I like playing dress up. And I've got to say it, fair play for all of this being included on the disc. These cosmetics could easily have been driven by microtransactions, but this would have taken away from the experience. Being rewarded for putting in the time feels nice. Customizing the lightsaber is a really cool feature. It's not massively more complex than the customization options in Jedi Academy, but there are more options than the one in The Force Unleashed. There is a fantastic sequence towards the end of the second act, the climax of which sees Cal journey to Ilum to build his own lightsaber. This is a brilliant tie-in to ideas already done in the EU, and I'm thankful to see it in a game. You don't get to see the actual building of lightsabers all that often, and I really enjoyed this entire sequence. From here, the game breathlessly rushes towards its climax, which ultimately does nothing to rattle the status quo. I mentioned that this era was busy, so I imagine Avalon was under strict instructions not to rock the boat here, but that gave Respawn cast iron justification for not doing anything original. Everything in here has been taken from other Star Wars games or other games from the past few years. The settings and the history have been taken from the last decade of Star Wars stuff. I don't think Jedi Fallen Order has anything original to say. And you know what? It all just works, because it turns out you don't have to do anything original to make a good Star Wars game. That's a beautiful revelation to have. Star Wars itself is a bit of Kurosawa, a bit of Flash Gordon, a bit of Dam Busters, a bit of Butch and Sundance. It isn't original in the slightest, but it does have its own authentic voice. Jedi Fallen Order doesn't hide its influences either. Respawn are openly embracing that cyclical, repeating language of Star Wars. It looks like Star Wars. It sounds like Star Wars. It feels like Star Wars. Every time I saw or heard or read something which connected me to the Star Wars universe, I liked this game even more. It's true to itself. It doesn't compromise on its vision, and by layering me over and over with constant Star Wars flavor, Jedi Fallen Order delivers the most delicious Star Wars trifle I have had in 10 years. Thanks very much for watching this. If you're new to the channel, then please check out the rest of the Star Wars videos we have, and don't forget to check out our range of game show merch in the links below the video. Thanks again. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, ta-da.